You are probably not going to believe that the premise of this episode even needs to be stated. But you should write according to the game that you are making. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Chuck Beaver, and this is The Writing Wasn't Very Good, my web series dedicated to helping you avoid the pitfalls of video game writing. You should write according to the game that you are making. Do people actually not do that? You'd be surprised. The MBA slide. What is the MBA slide? It's my clever shorthand for the slide in the pitch deck that justifies the business case for the game. It is assembled during the concept/pitch phase of the game's lifecycle for either the executives or the financiers or whoever's in charge of greenlighting the project. It's the first pillar of the game's existence, and all subsequent creative efforts must support it. Now, while the MBA slide is usually developed by the executive or business development teams, this is a place where the narrative team can offer significant value, if we're brought in early enough. USP framing, audience targeting, and especially artistic vision can all benefit greatly from strong narrative insight. What's the tone, the theme, the emotional promise behind the gameplay? These things don't just appear on a slide by accident, they're crafted. A good writer, looped in at the pitch phase, can often help shape these pillars in a way that makes the business case stronger, not just prettier. Of course, all of this assumes that we were brought in early, which, let's be honest, is rare. So now let's talk about what happens when we weren't part of the initial pitch phase process. When the MBA slide has already been written, approved, and funded. And we're now being handed the results with a polite smile and a deadline. What's in this MBA slide? The business case for a game typically covers three main topics. 1, the competitive opportunity. What's an open market niche that needs to be filled? 2, operational capacity. What are we good at making? 3, game proposal. What is the game design that perfectly fits the operational capacity and the competitive opportunity? Let's break down all three. Competitive opportunity. Let's show some examples of an open market niche. Niche. Underserved audiences. For example, Dream Daddy, a dad dating simulator. This successfully appealed to the LGBTQ+ audience with an inclusive and lighthearted approach. Stardew Valley. This attracted players seeking a wholesome, meditative farming experience, contrasting with action-heavy games. Whole new game genres. For example, League of Legends. Dota was obviously out there, but League mainstreamed MOBAs, effectively creating the genre standard. PUBG and Fortnite. These popularized the Battle Royale genre, sparking countless imitators. Trends in entertainment genre. For instance, nostalgia for specific eras or styles. Cyberpunk 2077. This was a retro-futuristic version of the 80s and 90s. Shovel Knight. This was a pixel art genre from the NES era. Dystopia and post-apocalypse. These are kind of perennial, to be honest, but they're definitely a entertainment genre trend that you can hop on. For example, The Last of Us, which explores morality in a dystopian setting. Horizon Zero Dawn, a more fantastical take on post-apocalypse. You have mythology and folklore. These can come in and out of fashion. The latest one was God of War in its Norse era. This was a shift for them to Norse mythology, appealing to epic narrative enthusiasts. Then there's excellent execution in a beloved game genre. For example, Hades. This elevated the roguelike genre with narrative depth and polished mechanics. Dead Space. I'm obviously a Dead Space fan as an ex-dev of Dead Space, so I apologize for constantly leaning into Dead Space. This revitalized survival horror with innovative mechanics like strategic dismemberment. You can also compete on innovative mechanics, gameplay loops, and social dynamics. For instance, Portal. This reimagined puzzle solving with a portal-based mechanic. Disco Elysium. This revolutionized narrative gameplay with dialogue as the primary mechanic. Among Us innovated trust and betrayal dynamics in a multiplayer setting. Operational capacity. Now that we've discussed what's needed, let's discuss what can be made. The question is, what is your studio good at making? For example, if you are making side-scroll platformers, then you are good at making side-scroll platformers. Stick with what you already excel at before expanding into new territory. Then consider adjacent expertise that could translate well. A studio with strong MMO infrastructure might adapt well to live service shooters. first-person shooter studios could consider doing action RPGs. But I would caution against jumping into genres that are completely unrelated to your skill set. A Match 3 mobile studio pivoting to an action RPG is a massive leap that would likely lead to failure. The game design proposal. Where competitive opportunity and operational capacity overlap, we find the game design proposal. The key elements are audience. Who are we targeting? And how does the game appeal to them? Game genre. What genre best addresses the identified opportunity? Core gameplay loop. What are the primary mechanics the players engage with? Unique selling points, or USPs. What sets this game apart? Operational fit. How does this align with the team's strengths and history? Monetization model. How will the game generate revenue effectively? Artistic vision. What is the theme, visual style, emotional tone, and narrative genre? Now, given all that, what is our job? Here's where things can go off the rails. Our task is to distinguish between the non-negotiable creative directives, or the spec, and the open design tasks, where we can deploy our full imagination and talent. Of the elements in a game design proposal, these 4 are directives that must be followed. Number 1, audience. We must write for the audience that the business model depends on. For example, filthy, juvenile humor is counterproductive to a game aimed at cozy co-op female players. This has happened to me. For narrative, audience is less about pure demographics of age, race, and gender, and more about player intent. We can have things like cozy gamers who seek a low-stress, wholesome experience, like Stardew Valley. Competitors who are seeking high-skill, adrenaline-fueled gameplay, like Valorant. Story seekers, people who are seeking deep, emotional narratives, like Disco Elysium. Number 2 is the game genre. We have to write for the type of game that we're making. Misalignment will lead to failure. For example, writing a single-player narrative for an MMO can lead to disaster. And yes, this has happened. Destiny 2014. Bungie's original narrative, led by veteran writer Joe Staten, was initially crafted as a single-player RPG light experience with a structured, story-driven campaign baked into the missions.
Old Russia. And I'm going to meet up with some of my friends, and together, we're going to explore the wild frontier on the other side of that wall.
However, roughly a year before launch, Bungie leadership had iterated the gameplay towards a more MMO-like model. Modular missions, patrol zones, free roam areas, and repeatable activities. By then, it was too late for a full narrative pivot. The original story was almost entirely cut, and the team scrambled to salvage what they could. The result was a significant disconnect between story and gameplay.
I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain.
And Destiny 1's disjointed narrative received widespread criticism. The franchise would later redeem itself with the release of The Taken King, which addressed many of these core issues. Number 3, the unique selling points, or the USPs. This may or may not pertain to narrative. It completely depends on the nature of the unique selling point itself. If it contains narrative directives, then we will have to follow it, obviously, including things like the theme. The tone.
Judge. Welcome back to the blood-stained paradise, Lady Love Dies.
The main character. The world. All kinds of crazy things might show up in here, so if it's here, we gotta do it. Number 4, artistic vision. While tone, visual, and thematic styles are not always included in the business proposal, when they are, they're non-negotiable. If present, they're usually high level, and they may take several forms. For example, you may get classic Hollywood vague shorthand of Portal meets Baldur's Gate 3, X meets Y kind of formulation. Or you may get actual specifics about thematic or visual styles or tone or narrative genre. For example, when we were working with Stefan Strandberg on Battlefield 1 with EA, he was an exceptional creative director. He had come from an audio background and had a multidisciplinary set of skills and could put together pitch videos that were really astonishingly well done. He had a cinematographer's touch to it, of course the audio background, real creative visionary. So he was able to put together a really visionary pitch deck for Battlefield 1 to sell to the EA executives, showing that World War I could be reinterpreted away from the sepia-toned trench warfare pictures that we had all seen, and shown instead as a vivid, colorful, brave thriller through that era of great change in the history of Europe. And it was very effective as a pitch and made for an amazing final product. In that case, a lot of the creative decisions were made in the pitch phase for us. And so we as the narrative team didn't have to go in and figure out theme, tone, and genre. That was the sale of that product to the executives. So in that case, the work was done and we needed to follow it. However, artistic vision often remains underdeveloped in game pitches, given the diluted narrative focus of games versus TV and film. In my experience, the chances that the artistic vision section of the pitch is fully and effectively developed is pretty low. And why is this? Well, unlike film and TV, games are not purely narrative artifacts. The business proposal must share focus and authors from across several other key disciplines. Software development. A game is first and foremost a piece of running code. It is an engineering feat. It is not a static work of art. Game design. It is also an interactive medium that has the entire suite of game design theory and principle behind it. It's primarily a game, obviously. So it is neither passive nor linear. Monetization. It has a whole suite of different methods for monetization not available to TV and film. Live services, DLC, microtransactions. Hidden opportunities. When artistic vision is vague or absent in the MBA slide, this creates an opportunity for us to contribute. We will get to shape themes, tone, world building, and story details. But this also comes with challenges. An executive team that overlooks artistic vision may not fully understand its value. This could lead to trouble down the road in the form of us having to justify our role in the creative process. And if we're left out of the early design loops, it can be tough to earn our place at the creative table later. We'll cover all this in great depth in the roadmap episode, I promise. Well, if all those are non-negotiable, then what's left? Well, there is a bewildering array of creative detail needed to get from a high-level pitch doc to a shipping product. For instance, despite maybe there being an artistic vision of theme, tone, and genre, world building still has to figure out culture, history, religion, beliefs, politics, governance, conflicts, technology, geography, flora and fauna, social hierarchy, rituals, languages, and then of course, the main story with characters, antagonists, protagonists, the why now, the high-level treatment, the detailed beats, the scene layouts, mission objectives, working with level design, the quests, the scripts, and much, much more. So if you're feeling straitjacketed by the MBA slide requirements, please rest assured that there is plenty of room for creative expression left in the vast amount of remaining work. Okay, that's it for this episode. Like and subscribe if you're into this content. Next up, we'll be covering who the right type of writer is for the right type of game. All right, see you next time.